This happened 5 years ago. I was 34 and needed a break from city life. I decided to go to my lake house, a place my grandfather had left me. I thought the peace and quiet would help me find inspiration for my graphic designs. The first night, things felt calm. Just me and the sounds of the lake. I unpacked my things and walked around. The wooden floors creaked under my feet. It felt both familiar and strange being there alone. As I listened to the gentle lapping of the water, everything seemed perfect. But that night, as I lay in bed, I heard a tapping sound beneath the floorboards. It was rhythmic, almost like footsteps. I told myself it was the house settling, but my unease grew. I tried to ignore it and eventually fell asleep. The next day went okay. I worked on my designs but felt the tension lingering. That evening the tapping returned, louder and more urgent. I told myself I was imagining things, but the noise gnawed at me. I started to search the house, hoping to find a reason for it. The sun set and the air grew cooler. The thoughts of the tapping echoed in my head. My heart raced as I lay awake that night, jumping at every sound. The following morning, I stumbled into the living room and froze. There was a drawing pinned to the wall. It was a child's drawing of the lake house with strange figures surrounding it. They looked unnatural, like they were watching me. My stomach twisted. I didn't remember putting it there, and it unsettled me more than I wanted to admit. I tried to brush it off but couldn't shake that feeling. I went back to my work, but the figures felt wrong. On my last day I opened the front door, breathing in the fresh air. As I stepped outside, I noticed something alarming. There were small footprints leading away from the house. They looked like a child's. Panic surged through me. I looked around but saw no one. It was empty, just me and the trees. I shut the door, my hands trembling. I felt trapped by the mysterious footprints and the drawing still haunting my mind. Where did they come from? I was rattled, questioning everything that had happened that weekend. I packed quickly, feeling a growing urgency to leave. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, had been there with me. As I took one last glance at the house, a noise caught my attention behind me. It was a soft rustle, like a whisper of movement. I turned around slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. But there was nobody there. Just the silent trees, staring back at me. I took a deep breath and hurried away, the memory of that weekend still haunting me. I still wonder what happened there. I returned to the city and tried to fall back into my routine. I threw myself into work, but the memories of that weekend nagged at me. The drawing, the tapping, the eerie footprints, they all replayed in my mind like a broken record. I thought about the things I had seen and heard. I couldn't explain them, but they felt tied to something deep, something I couldn't grasp. Weeks passed. I buried myself under deadlines and coffee, but felt restless. I decided to call my neighbor, Susan, who lived a few miles away from the lake house. Maybe she could shed some light on things. I needed to ask her about the area, if she had seen any kids nearby or knew anything about past residents. When I reached her, she was cordial and upbeat. After some small talk, I asked about the lake house and if she'd ever noticed anything unusual. She paused, a hint of hesitation in her voice. Well, it's an old house. Lots of stories attached to it, you know. Some people say the area is different. What do you mean by different? I pressed. Just that there's something about the lake at night. Some folks say they've seen things. Figures that don't belong. Shadows moving on the water. A chill ran down my spine. Did you ever see anything? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. No, thankfully. But I don't go there at night. It's best to stay away when the sun goes down. I felt the panic rising again. A sickness, that gnawing uncertainty. I thanked her and hung up. That night, sleep evaded me. I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. What if whatever I had felt was real? What if the stories she hinted at were more than just rumors? 2 days later, I was ready to face my fears. I packed a small bag and drove back to the lake house. As I approached, the memories flooded my mind. The moment I stepped out of the car, a wave of trepidation washed over me. The air felt thicker, almost electric. I pulled out my phone and started documenting everything. The comfortable familiarity of the old house now felt oppressive. The walls seemed to close in on me. I moved through the rooms instinctively, finding nothing but dust and fading memories. That night, the sun dipped below the horizon, and the silence became heavy. I sat at the living room table, sketching and trying to find that lost inspiration. But then, a sound broke through. The rhythmic tapping beneath the floorboards. It was back. My heart raced as I listened, every thud sending tremors of anxiety through me. I had to confront it. I grabbed a flashlight and crept toward the sound. With each step, I felt that sense of dread intensify. When I reached the stairs, the tapping stopped abruptly. My breath caught in my throat. I shone my light beneath the floor, expecting to find just the darkness and debris. But that's when I saw it, a small, weathered toy lying on its side. A child's toy. Unease rolled through me like the thunderclouds gathering outside. Now I had to know. Who had been in my house? And why did they leave this behind? The shadowy figures from the drawing and the ghostly footsteps suddenly came rushing back into my mind, swirling around like the fury of a storm. Just then, I heard it again, louder this time, and from behind me. My pulse quickened. Something was in the house. I turned slowly, the flashlight beam shaking in my grip. The room felt colder, the kind of cold that wraps around you like a blanket of dread. I gulped hard, trying to steady myself, and then I called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" Silence swallowed my words. With cautious steps, I made my way back into the living room, scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. My heart thundered in my chest, thrumming against my ribcage. I didn't want to believe that I was alone in the house. The feeling was more intense than before, like I was being watched. That's when I heard it again, a distinct sound that seemed to echo from the kitchen. A low scrape, like something dragging across the floor. My breath hitched. I had to see what was happening. I edged toward the kitchen, trying to silence the crackle of nerves in my stomach. Each step felt like it might be my last. As I approached the kitchen doorway, I could see a faint glow coming from within. It flickered wildly, casting strange shapes against the walls. I hesitated, gripping the flashlight tighter. What could be causing that light? I peeked around the corner, my heart pounding, and froze. A small candle flickered on the kitchen table. But that wasn't the only thing. Set beside it was another children's toy. This one a spinning top, painted bright red and blue. It sat there as if waiting for someone to play with it. I took a step back, confused. What is going on here? I muttered to myself. It was becoming clear that someone, or something, was playing games with me. Again, a sound cut through the stillness, a soft giggle. A child's laugh. My breath caught in my throat. I rushed out of the kitchen, back into the living room, but the air had changed. I could feel a presence behind me, something intangible and jagged-edged lurking just out of sight. I turned to face it, ready to confront whatever this was, but saw nothing. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I fought against that urge. I needed answers. I shuffled back toward the kitchen, my heart racing. I grabbed the spinning top, holding it tightly in my palm. My mind raced, trying to connect the dots. Did it belong to the same child who had left the toy under my floor? My eyes darted around the room, searching for any other clues. A scrap of paper caught my eye, half hidden beneath the edge of a cabinet. I reached down and pulled it out. It was old, crumpled, but on it were drawings, children's doodles, cheerful and childlike, depicting a sunny picnic by the lake. But something wasn't right. There were shadows creeping in from the edges of the page, dark and looming over the happy scene. Just then, the candle flickered out, plunging the room into darkness. My heart raced. I was not alone anymore. Then I heard it. Footsteps, soft and deliberate, moving toward me. "Who's there?" I shouted, forcing my voice to be firm, though it quivered. My mind raced back to the stories Susan told me. I felt the walls closing in, caging me in a twisted reality I didn't know how to escape. "Show yourself!" I demanded, but my voice cracked, betraying my fear. I knew now I couldn't run. I had to confront whatever this was. But before I could prepare, The candle flickering back to life momentarily cast a shadow behind me. A small figure, just beyond the doorway, barely illuminated in flames' glow. I felt paralyzed, too afraid to turn around. What had I unleashed? I stood frozen, my heart racing. The small figure behind me seemed to breathe life into the darkness. I could hardly process what I was seeing. It was just a shadow, and yet it felt too real. A child, or at least the ghost of one, was watching me from the doorway. Panic surged through me. I wanted to scream, to bolt from the house, but my feet felt like they were glued to the floor. Instead, I managed to muster just enough courage to turn slowly. What I saw nearly stole my breath away. The candlelight danced, revealing a little girl, her hair tousled, wearing a white dress that looked old-fashioned. Her face was obscured in half-shadow, but in the flickering light, I could see the glimmer in her eyes, wide and curious, yet somehow filled with sorrow. "Who are you?" I managed to stammer, my voice raw with fear. The girl didn't respond. Instead, she pointed toward the kitchen, a gesture that felt less like an invitation and more like a command. My gaze followed her finger, but I didn't want to move. Instead, I grasped the spinning top tighter, as if it were some kind of shield against whatever was happening. Before I could process her intent, the girl took a step back into the shadows, disappearing as swiftly as she had appeared. The darkness rushed in, filling the void she left behind. I felt a chill crawl down my spine as I became acutely aware of my surroundings. The silence was almost deafening. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. The shadows danced across the walls, playing tricks on my mind. I felt the urge to flee, but I couldn't shake the need to understand the girl's part in all of this. She had to be connected to the toys, to the drawings I found. Slowly, I stepped forward, moving back into the kitchen. The candle flickered back to life once more, illuminating the table where the top lay. Something clicked in my head. What if this was a game for her? A way for her to communicate? I hesitated, then placed the spinning top on the table. "If you want to play, I'll play," I said, my voice shaking. I felt foolish talking to an empty room, but something compelled me to keep talking. "What do you want from me?" Silence enveloped me once again. Then, the candle began to flicker more violently. I darted my eyes toward it just as it snuffed out completely, plunging me into darkness. I felt a rush of dread, my heart pounding in my ears. But then, I noticed something. The sound of small feet padding against the floor, circling me, as if the girl was moving around me, just beyond reach. I squinted into the blackness, every instinct telling me to run. Yet I stood my ground. "Stop!" I shouted, hoping to break whatever spell was weaving around me. The footsteps paused, and an eerie stillness settled. Then, a whisper, soft and low, barely audible. "Play with me." The words echoed through the room, filling me with an unsettling mixture of fear and curiosity. Who was this child? What had happened to her? A sense of urgency gripped me, and I realized I had to dig deeper into this mystery. But I also knew one thing. Whatever was happening, I was no longer just an observer. I was a part of it now. My fingers trembled as I reached for the flashlight to illuminate the dark corners of the room. I had to know what secrets this house held. What else would I find? The beam of the flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing the kitchen in a new light. The familiar layout felt even more foreign now, like a stage set for a haunting play. Shadows clung to the walls as I swept the flashlight beam across the room. I could still hear her whisper echoing in my ears. "Play with me." Part of me dreaded what would come next, but curiosity was stronger than my fear. I looked back at the table, where the spinning top sat untouched. It felt like a challenge, a gateway to understanding. I took a step closer. Just then, I noticed something out of place. Next to the spinning top was an old, fraying cloth doll that hadn't been there before. It was dirty, its button eyes glinting under the flashlight beam. My heart raced again. Why hadn't I seen it before? I picked up the doll, feeling the rough texture of its fabric. Its face was eerily cheerful, contrasting sharply with the previous darkness. I could almost hear the girl's laughter, but it turned hollow, twisting my stomach. There was a small piece of paper tucked beneath the doll. I unfolded it carefully. The drawing was crude but unmistakable. It was a girl holding hands with a shadowy figure. My breath caught in my throat as I realized the shadow looked just like the girl I had seen. Below the drawing, in shaky handwriting, were the words, "She wants to play forever." A chill crawled up my spine. Play forever? I echoed softly, the implications of the note pressing down on me. Did this mean the girl was trapped? Was she trying to pull me into her world? Suddenly, the candle flickered again and sputtered to life. The little girl stood at the edge of the room, her face once again half hidden in shadow. This time, she seemed different. The sorrow in her eyes was now mixed with something more desperate. "Please," she whispered, sounding younger, more vulnerable. "You have to help me." I felt an unsettling urge both to comfort her and to run away. Was she truly innocent? Or was she luring me into something sinister? "Help you how?" I asked cautiously. She pointed toward the back door. I hesitated, glancing back to the doll and the drawing. The weight of the moment pressed against me. I felt like I was standing at a crossroads. "I can't just follow you," I told her. "What do you want me to do?" The girl stepped closer, and I caught a glimpse of her small hand reaching for the doorknob. Her eyes were pleading, and for the first time the fear began to shift into something else, a pulsing urgency. But before I could follow, a loud crash echoed from somewhere deep within the house, startling me. I turned sharply, the beam of my flashlight shifting wildly as I tried to locate the source of the noise. The sudden commotion shattered the fragile tension we had established. "Stay here!" I shouted into the darkness, but the girl had already vanished, leaving me alone in the spotlight of uncertainty. Eager to find answers but paralyzed with fear, I took a deep breath. This was no longer a game. I realized there were far more questions than answers. I had to confront whatever lurked in this house. I had to know the truth behind the girl, the voices, and the shadows. With that, I steeled myself and moved toward the noise. As I crept along, the sense that I was being watched crept back, heavy and unsettling. That's when I saw it. The faint outline of something standing at the end of the hallway, just beyond the glow of my flashlight. It wasn't the girl. My heart dropped. I wasn't alone. I took a step back, my flashlight trembling in my hand. The outline was tall, too tall for a child. It stood still, almost waiting for me to make a move. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I couldn't tear my gaze from whatever was out there. "Who's there?" I called out, the tremor in my voice betraying my bravado. No answer came. The figure remained motionless in the shadows. I swung the flashlight back and forth, trying to find its shape more clearly. It was as if the darkness wrapped around it, guarding its features. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my courage. Maybe it was just a trick of the light. I moved closer, one foot in front of the other. As I did, the figure began to shift slightly, its edges blurring as if it were formed from smoke. My heart raced again as uncertainty flooded me. "Please," I said louder this time. "I just want to know what's going on." Then, in a swift movement, the outline surged toward me. I froze, paralyzed by fear. The flashlight beam flickered over it, illuminating something that sent chills through my entire body. Its face, or what I presumed was a face, was devoid of features, just an empty void where eyes should have been. I stumbled back, my breath hitching in my throat. In that moment of vulnerability, the figure dove into the nearest room, disappearing through an open doorway. My heart thundered loudly in my ears as I registered what just happened. I had to follow it. I had to know what it was. I rushed to the doorway, my heart racing with each step. The room that awaited me was the living room, dimly illuminated by the flickering light of a dying flame in the fireplace. The shadows danced on the walls, twisting into grotesque shapes that seemed almost alive. I scanned the room, but saw nothing. "Show yourself!" I demanded, straining my voice against the stillness that had enveloped me. The feeling that I was not alone returned, creeping into my mind like an uninvited guest. Then, behind me, I heard a soft giggle. I whirled around, and there was the girl, standing on the edge of the staircase. Her expression was a strange mix of playfulness and something darker. "Did you see him?" she asked, her eyes bright with excitement. "See who?" I stammered, my mind racing. What do you know? She shrugged, her innocent gaze making the situation even more perplexing. He likes to play too, but he gets mad when people don't join. I felt cold sweat trickle down my spine. Join what? The shadows behind her seemed to shift again, suggesting movement. My pulse quickened. I had stumbled too far down this road, and now I felt the weight of the unknown pressing in on me. Before I could demand more answers, the room shifted. The light from the fireplace flickered wildly, as if agitated. I looked back at the girl, but she was no longer smiling. Her demeanor had changed, and an unsettling darkness lingered in the air. Then everything went dark. The flashlight flickered out, leaving me in complete silence, consumed by a darkness that felt thick enough to choke on. My heart raced, panic rising. I fumbled for my phone, desperate for any source of light. In that overwhelming darkness, a voice whispered my name. It wasn't the girl. I fumbled with my phone, the screen finally lighting up just enough for me to breathe again. My heart raced as I glanced around, every corner feeling like it held an unseen threat. The whisper had seemed so close, echoing in the suffocating darkness. "Who's there?" I called out again, my voice stronger this time. "Show yourself!" Nothing. The silence pressed back against me, heavy and unyielding. I took a hesitant step toward the stairs, my feet more confident as the familiar glow from my phone pierced the dark. As I reached the bottom of the stairs, I felt the weight of eyes on me. I turned back to look at the fireplace. The shadows danced eerily, twisting and shifting as the flames sputtered. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever I had encountered was still in the house. I thought of the girl, standing on the stairs just moments ago. Had she gone? "Are you here?" I whispered, my throat feeling tight. Still no answer. I was alone, or at least I thought I was. Suddenly, a loud crash from the kitchen jolted me. My heart pounded as I stood frozen for a moment, caught between curiosity and fear. I didn't want to investigate, but I couldn't just stand here either. I took a deep breath and approached the kitchen entrance cautiously, the light from my phone flickering against the wall. As I entered, I saw the source of the noise. A chair had fallen to the ground, its legs scraping loudly across the tiled floor like a scream muffled in the distance. I glanced around, searching for any sign of movement, any clue to what was happening. "Is anyone there?" I asked again, my voice trembling slightly. In response, I heard a faint giggle, a soft, eerie sound that sent chills racing down my spine. It was just like the girl's laugh. I turned quickly to where I thought I might catch a glimpse of her, but the room was empty. "Stop playing around," I snapped, my nerves fraying with each second. "This isn't funny." Suddenly the kitchen light flickered and went out. My heart plummeted. I was enveloped in darkness again. Every instinct told me to leave, to run as far away from this place as possible. But I felt anchored, as if the secrets of this house had wrapped around my legs. With shaking hands, I pulled up my phone again, squinting at the screen. That was when I saw it, a shape darting across the corner of the room, too quick to identify. I held my breath, squinting into the shadows. "Please, just show yourself!" I shouted, more desperate than before. The giggle erupted around me again, now sounding almost like a taunt. I turned on my heel, heading back to the living room, hoping to find some sense of reality once more. As I stepped through the doorway, I became aware of a warm light blooming from the fireplace, brighter than before. But when I looked, the fire had reignited, flickering with shadows that moved unnaturally. My throat went dry as I noticed a figure standing beside the mantel, a faint outline that looked familiar. "Are you ready to play?" it whispered, and my heart fell as the shadows revealed the girl. Her smile was gone, replaced by something darker, almost sinister. Before I could react, the air around me grew thick, pressing in tightly. The walls felt like they were closing in, and I realized with horror that this was only the beginning. I stood frozen, unable to comprehend the transformation before me. The girl's eyes, once bright and innocent, now glinted with a cold calculation. My stomach twisted in knots. The air felt heavy, tinged with an unshakable unease. "Who are you?" I barely managed to whisper, hoping for a response that might undo this nightmare. "Are you scared?" she asked, her voice dripping with playful malice. The shadows behind her seemed to nod in agreement, swelling like dark clouds ready to burst. I took a cautious step back, my mind racing to find an escape route. "I just want to go home," I stammered, desperation edging into my tone. The girl tilted her head, considering me with a strange mixture of pity and amusement. "Home? But it's so much more fun here," she said, her voice lilting, as if she were singing a child's song. With a swift motion, she lifted her hand, and the shadows writhed, twisting into grotesque shapes. I knew I had to get away. I turned on my heel, prepared to flee back to the kitchen, but the moment I took a step, the air crackled with a sudden burst of energy. I stumbled, tripping over nothing. My phone slipped from my grasp and skidded across the floor, its light casting frantic beams in every direction. "Don't go!" the girl cooed, the shadows swirling around her like a storm. "There are so many games we can play." A chill ran down my spine as the reality of her words sank in. I scrambled to retrieve my phone, my heart racing. When I finally grasped it again, I pointed it toward her in a feeble attempt to illuminate the darkness that threatened to engulf me. The light made her flinch, a hint of discomfort flickering across her face. "Why are you doing this?" I shouted, the words spilling out as the adrenaline surged through my veins. "What do you want?" Her laughter echoed off the walls as the temperature in the room dropped. "You came here to play a game, didn't you? Just like the others." "Others?" The word hung in the air, heavy with dread. I gulped, trying to piece together what she meant. Had there been others? I had come here believing I was alone for the weekend, hoping for rest. But now, uncertainty gripped me, and a new layer of fear unfurled. "I don't want to play!" I yelled, louder than before. I took a step back, only to find the doorway to the kitchen blocked by a wall of darkness, shifting and alive. "Too late," she said, her voice softening, almost soothing. "The games have already begun. You can't leave until you play." In that moment the shadows surged toward me, pulling me back into a realm of twisting fear. I fought against it, clawing for freedom as the walls began to pulse. And then, just as quickly as it had begun, the light flickered again. I felt myself breaking through the thick air, desperate to wake from this horrific dream. But the girl's last words echoed, sending tremors through me. "Let the fun begin." Just then, the front door slammed shut with a thunderous crash, and my heart raced as I realized I was not alone after all. I stood there, breathless and terrified, feeling the shadows creep closer. The girl's eyes gleamed, a mixture of delight and something far more sinister. I didn't want to believe I was trapped. There had to be a way out. I turned back toward the kitchen. The darkness had changed. Now it pulsed and writhed, almost as if it were alive. I could hear whispers, faint but unmistakable, their disjointed phrases slipping in and out of comprehension. Panic coursed through me. I was not just up against one girl. I was surrounded by something more. "Don't ignore me," she taunted, stepping closer. "Let's play a game, shall we?" I could feel a prickling fear wash over me. What kind of game did she mean? I had come to this lake house to relax, not to be ensnared in whatever twisted nightmare was unfolding. I took a deep breath and thought back to everything I had brought with me. My phone and a few supplies. Maybe I could use them somehow. "Just leave me alone," I shouted, hoping sheer volume would fend off her approach. The girl smiled wider, the shadows undulating at her feet, as if they fed off my fear. As I scoured the room for anything else I could use as a weapon, I recalled the old lamp on the side table. It had an unusual bulb, one I hadn't noticed before. Desperation drove me toward it. I had to know if it would help chase away the darkness. "Now you want to play hide and seek?" she asked, her laughter ringing with echoes of the chaos surrounding us. I ignored her, grasping the lamp and pulling it toward me. I had to risk it. With trembling hands, I switched it on. A warm light flooded the room, scattering shadows momentarily. I felt a rush of hope. This could work. "See? You can play nice?" the girl said, her smile faltering. "But we know how games must be played." I tightened my grip on the lamp and took a defiant step forward. This made her retreat a fraction, the shadows recoiling slightly. "Stop. I didn't come here to play your games," I called out, my voice unwavering. I just want to leave. The air vibrated with her laughter, but it was different this time, tinged with frustration. You think you can leave? Suddenly, the light flickered again, and everything plunged into darkness. I could feel the hair on the back of my neck stand up. A noise came from the hallway, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoing toward me. My heart pounded as I realized I wasn't just battling the girl, or whatever she had become. Something else lurked nearby, something waiting in the shadows. Who's there? I shouted, my voice a shaky whisper now. No response. Just the sound of footsteps growing louder. And then I saw them. Figures, emerging like ghosts from the dark, their twisted forms barely illuminated by the dying light of my lamp. I recoiled, chills running down my spine. They were not just shadows. They were the remnants of those who had come before. Welcome to the game, the girl said, her eyes glinting with malicious glee. I stumbled back, now fully aware that escape was no longer guaranteed. The sinister laughter swelled as the realization hit me. This was no ordinary night at a lake house. I had willingly walked into a trap, and the only question that remained was how to survive the game I never wanted to play. I awoke in the bright light of morning, confusion clouding my mind like a fog. The house was still, devoid of the surreal chaos that had engulfed me the night before. Had it all been a nightmare? Was I really alone? As I sat up, a cold chill washed over me. I quickly glanced around the living room. My heart sank. The spinning top was still on the table, the child's doll watching silently from the corner. Everything looked untouched, yet the lingering sensation that something was off made my skin crawl. Gathering my strength, I stepped outside. The lake shimmered in the morning light, calm and inviting. I took a deep breath, trying to shake off the sense of dread that clung to me. There were no whispers, no laughter, just the gentle lapping of water against the shore. But still, an undeniable feeling nagged at me. I started packing my things, moving as fast as I could while contemplating what to do next. Maybe it had all been a figment of my imagination, fueled by the isolation. But could I really dismiss what had happened? The child's laughter echoed in my ears, a spectral reminder of the girl in the shadows. I drove back to the city, the landscape whipping past as I grappled with the memories. Was the girl trying to reach out? Or was she a malevolent force luring me for some inexplicable game? I still didn't know if any of it was real. A mixture of nightmare and reality, or perhaps an aspect of my own psyche bleeding into the physical world. That night I tried to sleep, the distant echoes of the previous weekend haunting me. Every creak in the apartment felt amplified, every shadow a reminder of the girl in the lake house. I tossed and turned, but sleep eluded me. Over the next few weeks, life settled into a strange semblance of normalcy. I kept waiting for the memories to fade, but they clung to me, persistent and heavy. I looked into every corner of my home for shadows, half expecting to see the girl or hear her giggle at any moment. I let it go after a while, convincing myself that it was just a product of an overactive imagination. But just like that, months passed, and I felt the weight of time dulling my fears. Then one fateful evening, as I sat peacefully on my couch, my phone buzzed. It was Susan, calling to check in. We chatted about trivial things, but at some point, I couldn't resist asking her one last question. Did anything strange happen at the lake house after I left? There was a long pause before she answered, her voice finally steady with something akin to regret. You know, there have been reports of strange sounds coming from there. Some say it's just the old house settling. Others hear children laughing. My heart thundered in my chest. Children? Yeah, like they're playing, she continued. People have even spotted little footprints in the snow during winter. But you didn't hear anything like that, did you? It's probably just stories. A shiver ran down my spine, the conversation igniting a whirlwind of thoughts. The playground of my fears returned with a vengeance. I thought I had escaped, yet part of me felt bound to that house. That night, I barricaded myself in, trying to drown out the echoes of forgotten laughter. A fleeting thought crossed my mind. Maybe it wasn't just about survival. Perhaps there was a deeper connection to grasp, one that tied me to the girl who seemed forever trapped. Months drifted by before I found myself standing at the edge of the lake again, the house looming behind me like a looming specter. I didn't know if I would find answers or simply face more questions, but the weight of uncertainty pushed me forward. Maybe, just maybe, I could uncover the truth and help her escape from her shadowy limbo. As I stepped inside, I could hear the faintest echo of laughter, echoing through the walls. The air felt thick, charged with electricity. I was back in the game, this time, ready to play or confront whatever awaited me within those walls. And amid the twilight shadows, I couldn't help but wonder if I was there to free her, or if she was there to capture me. I guess some games never truly end.